For today's video, we're going to be looking at a Lost Zone box version with Pikachu EX coming into the deck list. This is a big upgrade that this archetype gains from Surging Sparks because Pikachu EX offers so much to this deck actually. Let's take a look at Pikachu EX, get a bit more familiar with it. Its Resolute Heart is a fantastic ability where if it would be knocked out from full hit points, instead of being KO'd, you survive on 10 remaining hit points. That immediately is going to be so annoying for a number of matchups. Archetypes like Terapagos and Charizard probably have to use Dusknoir to get around with this all in one turn. Lugia is really in trouble with this card. There's Palkia archetypes, there's Gholdengo, there's the new Ceruledge EX. There's a number of archetypes that can't deal with this Pokemon in one attack, giving you an absolutely massive advantage in those situations where this Pikachu can often take 4 prizes on its own. And that's because of its massive Topaz Bolt attack that can one-hit KO pretty much everything that's not a Stage 2 EX Pokemon. For a Grass, Lightning, and Metal, you deal 300 and discard 3 energy from this Pokemon. Naturally, we're going to be using gates here to attach and get a gate in to attack all in one turn, and we have lots of reload, of course, with the Super Rods as well. So we're going to try and load up this Pikachu in a number of matchups. There's still the issue of Regidrago, obviously a deck that plays Cologne already that can help get around the Resolute Heart ability, but also has damage counter placement, and it has Kyurem in the deck, so that's still an issue matchup. Raging Bolt naturally plays Slitherwing as well, so even that's still quite a close matchup, although you still will try and use Pikachu as a solid attacker that can get over Bravery Charm Bolts. And then there's decks like Gardevoir which have Munkidori. There are actually a number of archetypes that can get around the Pikachu EX's ability, but just its own damage output alone is enough of a selling point of this card. So the Pikachu slots in really nicely here, where we already have Iron Hands that wants to have Lightning Energy, and is a great way for us to take multiple prizes on single prize Pokemon, or take 3 prize KOs on the likes of Lumineon and Squawkabilly EX. Actually, one of the reasons why I still feel Raging Bolt is a favourite matchup for this deck is because even when they use Slitherwing, you can try and use Iron Hands to take through on a Squawk anyway, which is very often hitting the board. We're still using that Bloodmoon Ursaluna EX, which is a fantastic, efficient late-game attacking option, but something you can also gate to in the mid-game if need be. And as you can see with my deck list, we are playing 11 energy total. That's because we also want to have water in the deck so that we can threaten Radiant Greninja. So we have both Hands and Greninja, which are fantastic options against single-prize matchups, as well as late-game Sableye. And then into the multi-prize matchups, we have Pikachu and Bloodmoon really carrying us there. I know this energy count is like substantially higher than a lot of the other Pikachu lists that I've been seeing going about right now, but that's because I think people have been sort of looking at the Hedrick approach where it's just like 7 energy, and I think that's really, really low. And I'm also just a little bit queasy, even lowering counts of like Psychic and Water energy that little bit more as well. Don't get me wrong, there are cards that I want to add into the deck list as well, and I'm going to discuss those changes towards the end of the video. But because we're already playing 6 one-off Pokemon, I'm trying to avoid death flower selecting situations where you have to either choose between a Pokemon or a one-off energy in the list. So I'm trying to pad out the energy cards because energy are useful. They're really good for conceal cards, and of course they can help you pay retreat with early flower selectings. And even just banking attachments on things like Pikachu is actually reasonable now, because there will be matchups where people can't knock out the Pikachu even when they're gusting it into the active and trying to deal with it proactively. Unless they're playing those cancelling clones in certain decks, they're just not going to have a way through you. For me, this was actually a throwback to like the Rayquaza builds, where you had Raikou as a sniping attacker and Rayquaza as the big damage option in the deck. This is going back quite a ways now, pre-rotation of course. But there's definitely been precedent for us to play like a crazy amalgamation of energy, and sort of 11 to 12 energy was the sweet spot in those lists. So with this Pikachu approach, I've really tried to hybrid the two, where I still want that really high item density for PokéStop draw, but then keeping a really high energy count because that's continuing to draw cards with Radiant Greninja, useful for Comfey in the opening stages, and it sort of gives us a bit more leeway with our flower selecting throughout the entire game, and prizing to an extent as well. That said, I do think Pikachu is a major upgrade to this archetype. I do think Lost Box will be coming back into the top 10 of decks. Like I said, towards the end of the video, I'm going to start talking about a few other options that I really want to weave into the 60 and some potential cuts. But for now, let's get into some games. If you're looking for PTCG live codes, make sure you check out the PoTown store. You can get a 5% discount on your order using that code, OmniPoke. So getting into our game number 1, we have a really good hand actually, lots of Ball Search, Colress in there as well. We are going first, so it may be a slower turn, but even getting a couple selectings in is really nice. Every single game of Lost Box, you actually have to be very diligent with your prize checking because everything matters, and there is much more permanency to the Lost Zone compared to a discard pile where we have recursion. We are going to get a pay retreat into a Comfey here. Actually, we're going to Nest Ball quickly first and get Pikachu out proactively. That's because I've seen an Ogerpon and I know that I want to get these out before getting my flower selectings in. We're going to keep the Lightning Energy in the hand because that could be useful with Pikachu later. I'm going to take a Switch Cart. Of course, we just want to ramp this Lost Zone as much as possible. So we're going to get another selecting in, take a Water, And we are also going to fire off a PokéStop here. It does discard a Colress, but we get Nest Vacuum, which could help us on our quest to get to 7 next turn. So all in all, a pretty good opener for us. Let's see if it's going to be Bolt or Drago. We would much prefer a Raging Bolt matchup here. Although Slitherwing is still a crucial attacking Pokemon they can try and use in this matchup. Bit of an interesting one, really. Either we have to really ration our our gusting cards, or we hope they put down a Squawkabilly for us, and then we can take the one on Slitherwing with one of our single prizes, and then look to use Iron Hands. That's like the route that we still win in 3 attacks here. Looks like they are able to Sada just 1 fighting, and we do see a Vessel as well. Can they launch an attack here? Never feels great, a Bolt coming in to just take a single prize, but they can't really do anything else, to be honest. There is the energy to the Bolt. They do Switch Carts, which I suppose preserves an energy for them to Bellow. And that's all it's going to be. Just requiring 1 discard, and it's going to go from the bench. So they are confident that their Bolt is going to survive, and I wouldn't be that confident looking at our hand. We need to find a gate, essentially. Let's go Colress. Gate is there immediately. And there is boss's orders here. Now, this is the one thing giving me pause right now, is because I really have to respect Slitherwing now that they haven't put Squawkabilly down. When they Squawk, you don't care because you can take the one and then go hunting later with hands. But with no Squawkabilly down, I have to really, really respect the Slither, and that's why you also see me toss a Grass Energy there and keep Prime Catcher around, because it's very likely that we take the 2 prizes this turn, now that our hands worked out pretty nicely. We have Vacuum to help us get to 7 here. And then we can unlock our gates. So we have the KO secured, but we have to expect Slither as the response. So I just have to have lots of Gust in hand ready for that situation. So that's pretty much all we can do here. We don't have much for next turn, but I can, you know, see a lot more cards with Comfey. And I'm holding Prime, which is really important. So that's looking okay, and a Colress off the prizes is absolutely brilliant as well. Let's see if the opponent can construct a Slither. If they can't, I think we basically can't lose, because then we can reload Pika, and then we have an easy Bloodmoon Gust for win if they start catching up. So they have basically this 1-turn window to Slither us. And if it doesn't come together, we're just cruising, basically. It does essentially mean that Slitherwing is like a guaranteed card in Bolt now. I think there's many more reasons to play that card than Sandy Shocks, which is the other single prize option. They've started to both Bolt, though, so I don't see a Slither coming down, which means Pikachu is going to absolutely run away with this game, I think. And this card certainly has the capacity to do that. There will be a number of matchups that don't have the easy answers, like Slitherwing or like Cologne in decks. Even like damage counter placement from Hawlucha or Dragapult or those sorts of attackers. As the opponent is forced to Bellow into Peak, which just feels absolutely horrendous. Pretty sure we are just locked in for win here. That's the only thing to bear in mind in this matchup, though. Like, Bolt isn't free. Yes, Pikachu's a good card, but it does enable them to weave in their single prizer. So you have to be really on the ball with your Gust if you want to still beat this matchup convincingly. The good news is about Slitherwing is that obviously it's damaging itself heavily with its own attack, so that can be like annoying for them to chain it. So there can be situations where you can like still close on other attackers as well. I'm going to Nest Ball to thin the Bloodmoon. I can play the Hisuian to draw a couple more with Greninja here. We are just working towards Gate. We have lots of switches for our Comfey, but we found Rod and Gate, so we can very easily reload the Peak here. We are going to Rod now because I want to select into any of those 3 energies so I can spend my turn attachments. And we straight away do hit a Metal, which is perfect. Now I can just gate the other 2 out. Get the attachment of the Metal in. And they just concede immediately from there, which is completely understandable. Let's get into our next game. Really weak opener, where we have just the Bloodmoon. Looked like we were up against Gholdengo, because they have the Energy Search Pro. Naturally, the Mulligan gives us Comfey straight away, classic. But we are just going to bench and pass here. Not the best of starts, but at least we're holding on to Colress, which is still important. So we saw the E-Search Pro as the A-Spec in the list, which might mean they don't have the threat of Radiant Greninja so much, which I'm kind of hoping. But they immediately Iono us. Fortunately, we get back into a Colress. They're going to Vessel away. Manaphy. They're going to attach. Bench of Fez and just errand running for a couple energy. This is the new best Gimme Ghoul, by the way, for those wondering. Because it can grab energies out of the deck, which is nice. Hisuian Heavy, always a nice card to see early on, so I can search the deck. Sorry, the prizes. And have a little bit more confidence of what's going on. And now let's have a think about this Colress. Peak is obviously a keep. That's a massive card in this matchup. Any multi-prize matchup, Pikachu is going to be big. Gholdengo does have the capacity to play Cologne, especially if they're on a Greninja build. So Pikachu is not like a flawless card, but it still can be helpful. We're going to Nest Ball for Greninja before selecting here, just to see a couple additional cards. Cram is picked up, so if I can find enough switching cards here, I can get a Cram attack in to initiate the prize race. I already have Peak, Manaphy, and Cram in hand, so I don't feel like I need to keep the Nest Ball there. Also getting rid of another Nest Ball. Actually quite rare. Nest Ball's one of the strongest cards in this deck, to be fair. A really important one, because you have so many one-of attackers that the Nest Ball is absolutely busted to draw into. But we don't get the Cram swing in, unfortunately. The opponent then goes straight to double Dengo and also rocks the Jamming Tower early. Going to see a quick concealed cards. They shouldn't have too much trouble taking the KO here, I would imagine. We do have Metal Weakness, so they only need one energy. They're going to attach to the bench, and yep, they're going to make it rain. So they take their 1. We are currently at, what's this, 5 in the Lost Zone now after this Colress. Oh, sorry, this should get us to 7, I think. Need to make sure, yeah, there's 5 currently in there, so the Colress does get us to 7. We are going to get rid of a Boss and a Rod, but it's also that we can get Peak rolling, which seems good to me. We can bounce back straight away with a 2-prize KO, which is looking very, very good. Our hand's really weird, actually, to sit on, but we are going to get the Topaz Bolt in. If the opponent does have Cologne, we have Roxanne, which is something. Chorus off the prizes is great. We do see a Night Stretcher reloading Gholdengo. They have the flip into the bonuses. Gholdengo is very good at scaling its hand, isn't it? Just turn after turn. Obviously, we're not an Iono deck, but still. They also put down Palkia this turn, so I probably do need to commit the Manaphy next turn. Respecting the threat of Palkia. They can get another gimme down. And do they have the Cologne now? Or are they just going to be bundling into the Resolute Heart here? Well, Counter Catcher gets around Peak for a turn. They're just going to deal with Bloodmoon. I actually like that trade-off. Obviously, I'm holding Gates and Rods, so this looks really good. Looks like they did throw away enough water for me to be worried about Palkia's V-Star power. So we can go straight in with Colress. We already have PokéStop in hand, so I'm happy taking the board. We are going to Rod reload some energy here. I'm holding on to so many gates, my goodness. Let's just get back the Bloodmoon at the same time. And let's start gating these energies that we've shuffled back in, back out. We're going to swing 4 energy onto the Peak and just say, you better have Cologne. And if you do, I'm still looking towards Bloodmoon game anyway. We're going to reload some Colress to play around Hand Disruption. I think I should also ball out Bloodmoon here as well. Maybe I could have PokéStopped pre the Pal Pad. Now that I've padded, I'm definitely not going to spin the stop. I think I can still select here, though. We'll just take Gear to hand. That's fine. But this is literally saying you need to have Cologne this turn to play the game at all. And even if you do, I'm working towards Bloodmoon Gust for win. Let's see, they're going to start with Gholdengo, then they're going to flip. They did lead out Greninja, though, so maybe they have a plan to Cologne the Manaphy rather than the Pika here. That's the way that they can weave in a single prizer. Yeah, it is going to be Manaphy. Another coin bonus comes in. They do bounce the stop. So they have limited a good amount of our draw here. I imagine they're also taking out the Comfey on the bench. Here comes the Star Portal. Yep, there's the Cologne. I would expect a Cologne in Gholdengo. Pretty common, just for the Greninja more than anything else, but it happens to help out against Peak. So there goes Comfey. Oh, they choose to hit the Peak, which makes no sense, but maybe they didn't want to take the Manaphy out. They wanted to keep it active, but then you would just hit the Ursaluna, right? But either way, I can gear, and you can see the Prime Catcher is there for us. We are going to try and dig towards it. I definitely want to Roxanne this turn if I miss everything else, right? So we miss from the Greninja draw. We are keeping gates open just in case I get into Rod for Peak anyway. But fortunately we do hit the Prime off the Roxanne. And I also have Water, so I can just go Bloodmoon chasing the Fez for the final two. Pretty nice after a pretty awkward opener that we were still able to keep tempo with Dengo. Let's get into another game here. The hand is looking really, really nice this time. And we're up against Klawf, which is kind of an interesting matchup. This one did do okay at the LAIC, so do have to bear that in mind. And of course, Poison does get around Pikachu. This is not going to be a matchup where we're going to utilize Pikachu too much anyway, though, because they're going to be mostly single prize. But we have Iron Hands that we can spring on them. Oh, and they've benched a Squawk, so yeah, Iron Hands is going to be absolutely busted this matchup. And we have the attacking suite of Greninja, Sableye, and Cram that should see us through to the mid-game. Let's see the Squawk and Seize. Hopefully no turn 1 donk with Petulant. Klawf has a 3 retreat cost, which makes it a little bit harder for them. Yeah, okay, nice. Top deck's Comfey, which is really good as well. Let's get zooming with Greninja. We're just going to get one Comfey out. Honestly, I could have got both there, to be honest. Like, what else do I need in play? All I'd be doing is getting, like, more... This space just lets me have more attacking options, but honestly, I could have just thinned all 4 Comfey there and just got really zooming, but either way. We have a nice selecting there, getting rid of a Poffin. We have another nice selecting, getting rid of another Poffin. We can spin the stop. Typically, you like to spin after your selectings because you can draw into ball search. You can select into ball search cards, which then thins the deck of Pokemon. So that's why I'm usually going to try and spin last if I can help it. There are situations where you spin first if you're looking for specific things. But just a small note there. I'm just going to bank an attachment onto Greninja and pass things over after fueling the Lost Zone quite well, but not being able to work towards a Cram swing, which is really our ideal situation there. Let's see, it's going to be a boss from them. They're going to try and take out the Greninja, which makes sense. Fortunately, the Poison Ticks do work in our favour, pushing these Klawf into range of Cram. So I really don't need much next turn to have like a decent turn. Our best turn, though, is reloading this Greninja as much as possible. They're actually going to give us Artisan as well, which is good for us. Should allow us to thin Cram and probably Sableye later. Sableye being a good mopper-up kind of Pokemon. As we see their Unhinged Scissors take the first prize. Peak is the draw, not that important just yet. So we can get the free Cram, so we know we're at least taking a prize this turn. But really I want to work towards getting back Greninja more than anything else. This selecting can get us to... actually, we're already at 7. Nice, we hit Nest off the selecting. I feel like we definitely take that. Because now I can reload Greninja with the double gate in hand if I really want to. I could also just Cram swing here. Let's see how I want to do things. Yeah, we are going to go Greninja. I can go double gate and then pay retreat and keep a Switch Cart available if I want to. Or this way round means I can try and get an attachment in, which does work out. So then I can save a gate. And saving gates are still relevant, even in this matchup, because, again, we want to work towards hands in the end game. So that does mean we want to ration our gates, rather than spend both that turn and save a cart. Let's just load up damage onto both Klawf. Seems reasonable. And the Poison Tick means he probably wants to move this Klawf, our opponent. Otherwise we get the free KO. Well, Switch Cart's a good way to do it. Let's see, Arven coming in. We're at 9 in the zone. We have an easy Artisan for Sableye next turn to get to 10. Or I have potential Rod Reload Greninja with Gate in hand, so a few plays available to us. Poison puts the new Klawf down to just 20 remaining hit points, as we're going to get Sableye out for free. Yeah, I definitely like gating here just to get the Psychic out guaranteed, because I don't have a Switch card either, and then we can get our selecting in. We're just going to keep our other gates, because again, we want to still have enough hands later. Just debating whether or not I'm going to turn attach, and I do end up going for this. Just so that I have a pivot for the following turn. Because we are going down to 4 prizes here with our Lost Mine. We just need to put 1 on because of Poison, 4 onto the Klawf. And I could either like set up the Squawkabilly for a Greninja ping, but I feel like I want to save my gates for hands anyway, and we actually get a gate from prizes, which is really nice. We pick up the board as well, which is a good prize. If I can keep my hand this turn and work towards Iron Hands, I can have a crazy turn next turn and take 3. So that's really what it's about here. It's just me trying to weave in my Iron Hands at this point, by virtue of the Squawk that they use to get into the game. And that's really the game plan here for us. They can Artisan out the Klawf, perhaps. Yep, it is going to be a Klawf. Can they weave in a Iono here? That's going to be Secret Box to start things off. Iono would be one of the only things I'm afraid of, to be honest. Because we're holding on to so many nice pieces. Like, Rod Gate Gate is exactly what we want to be holding right now. They pick up Colress's Tenacity, so they're lacking the DCE. So that bodes really well for us. We get to sit on a crazy good hand now. Even if we don't hit from these next couple flower selectings, I can just cram swing into Klawf. But I'd rather do it this turn to play around any hand disruption, and then just know that cram or something else could just end game for us. Switch is not a bad card to pick up. Straight away, Iron Hands is found though, so that makes life way easier for us. We're just gonna take Comfey, and now I can Rod double gate. We're going to take back the Psychic just in case I need to reload Sableye at any point, and Psychic will be the 1 energy that I keep in the deck. And we're also going to use Boss here rather than Roxanne. I don't care about hand disrupting him, to be honest. I more so care about keeping Prime Catcher open for myself, so that I can close game a little bit easier next turn. We're also just going to spend the Vacuum here so we don't draw back into these cards, and then use the Amp. Sorry about that horrible cough. I am a little bit under the weather. That's also why I'm wearing this hat, if you didn't notice earlier on. It's very cold in the UK right now. We've actually had snow already. Anyway, they're going back into Klawf. They can take these two. They can't attack with this Klawf because Cram can finish it off, so they have to find a way around this hands. Probably Bloodmoon is their best attacker here. That 260 hit points being their biggest dude. They're going to Hyper Blow away Iron Hands, which is a curious choice. I feel like they probably had to deal with this card. Do they have anything that can tank for a turn here? Going to see the Town Store. They can reload that booster that we vacuumed away, just to be a nuisance. They're going to cart into Sneasler, which I'm not sure about, and then they go Carmine. Nest Ball, surely they have a... Okay, well, Electrode tanks on this board right now. Our board is currently full, so... And I believe Bloodmoon's in our Lost Zone, so I actually can't deal with this Electrode. We do have to go around it. But they've used Carmine, so we just get to sit on the hand. Let's just go into a Comfey because we have Prime Catcher. We just win in so many ways here. Let's just bring back up the Sneasler we damaged and finish it off with our Iron Hands. Nice. It's cool to see that we can play the one prize fight when we really need to, and hands still is a great way to cheat prizes, no doubt. Let's get one more game in, I think. Opponent's going to get to go first. The hand isn't great, but hey, we have Colress at least. Colress gets everything going. He makes everything okay. Nice to see them start a squawk when I've led Iron Hands. You can see what I'm going to try and do. Let's see. Hisuian for Palkia. And Greninja comes down as well. Fire Energy. Oh, it's Ceruledge. Yeah, there's one Ceruledge discarded as well as a couple of water early, which is pretty terrifying. Here come the cadets. Can they go any deeper into the deck? I think they discarded a Carmine with their earlier Squawk. Gonna see a Vessel getting water for a couple more water. Then they can conceal for a couple more cards. Another Cadet comes down. Ultra Ball. Does get rid of a Stretcher. There's Luminion. And they can Carmine if they want to. Yep, they are going to. Getting rid of a couple other supporters. And they're just going to pass things over to us. Another Chorus pickup isn't too shabby, just for next turn. We are going to have to sacrifice Boss here, but it's in the name of getting Comfey. I'm just going to hope here that we haven't prized our other Lightning and take the other Nest Ball so I can draw more cards this turn. Even with one Comfey, we're seeing a lot of cards here. It's fairly likely we find another Comfey or a Poffin to see more flower selecting here. Oh, we have to take the Pikachu. Always sad to see Gates go. Let's see the PokéStop. We do hit a Nest Ball, so I can at least get another selecting in. Oh, okay. I either go selecting and open up Palkia V-Star to wreck me, or I go Manaphy and have this awkward retreat. And we are going to go the Manaphy route, get a manual attachment in on peak. And probably just going to go Greninja here. Yeah, we need to keep our Lost Zone cards around so that I can still get to 7 next turn and gate. Let's see how the opponent acts around this. We've protected around Greninja, so I'm not seeing an easy way for them to take 2 prizes. Bear in mind that Ceruledge can take 3 prize late game KOs with Briar, but we've at least respected the Palkia side of things, which is coming onto the board now. They're going to retreat into Ceruledge. They're going to stretch her back a Ceruledge, so they're pretty much as set up as possible. But they are forced to take the 1 prize, which is pretty good for us. And we shouldn't have too much trouble getting to 7 here, especially with the pickup of this Comfey and a couple switching cards. I think the debate is here, Bloodmoon or not. It's pretty expensive if I do let Bloodmoon hit the zone. Yeah, we're going to bring Bloodmoon back because it is difficult to keep reloading peak. We can select here, keep the Metal Energy. We're at now 6. We can easily get the retreat into selecting for 7, and then we can prime with peak. So now let's get our gate in. Fortunately, we still have Lightning Metal available to us. I'm confident that this matchup doesn't play Cologne. It would be really weird if they did, because it's a dump and draw deck. So it doesn't make too much sense. I have the debate here of Palkia versus Ceruledge. I think Palkia is the best choice just because I've now spent Boss and Prime. So this means that the Greninja can't come up even just to tickle the Pikachu and take make an annoying turn for me. So I think Palkia is definitely the right move there. Let him just keep coming at me with Ceruledges. They're going to boss around peak. That's often what people have to do because it's a really annoying Pokemon to deal with. But it means that I'm holding Rod Gate And that's obviously very good for us. We can Colress first. We see another gate. And honestly, it may not be wrong to just really load up the peak here. If you're confident it's a matchup where they can't deal with you, I think it's not wrong to just go all in on peak. And I think that's what we're going to be seeing this turn, to be honest, with the double gate pickup here. Yeah, you can see how I'm gating. I'm definitely spending both on peak here and saying that this is my win condition. This one ability wins me the game immediately. We can quickly select. But yeah, Pikachu is a discard 3 energy, not a discard all. So you can do this play where you just say, well, I don't think you can deal with this Pikachu. I've loaded up the gun. What have you got for me? And let's see what Ceruledge has. I don't think much. No, not much. There you go. So some nice wins with Peak there. Yes, I do think the Regidrago matchup is still awkward, but the good news is they either clone the Peak or they do the clone Kyurem play. Whereas previously it felt like you were just completely out without a paddle. Now I think you at least have this sort of comeback of like, oh, they Kyuremed and got around Manaphy. Now at least my Pikachu will be good and sit on the board. That's like the one hope, the one ray of hope I think this deck has now, is that the Peak can still churn and burn through them if they're going to go Kyurem aggressively with Manaphy, or they deal with the Pikachu and then your Comfeys are safe and you keep your engine. So that's something that's still good for this deck. Let's talk about some other options that I've considered with the list. So for other options coming into this list, I think there are a couple interesting Pokemon you could consider. Definitely Pheasantipity EX. Obviously, it's a very, very good card. It's in a lot of archetypes, and it does give you a bit more of a safety net than just flower selecting to still close out games. At the moment, I'm going for the Pokégear, which is just like the more proactive answer. It's like more usable in those opening stages, so you can get Colress online and be the person being as aggressive as you can. But I do think Fez gives you more sustainability in that mid-game. The one thing I will say is that people are yearning for a way around Pikachu, and oftentimes giving your opponent Pheasantipity gives them that boss target. So the timing of Fez is still really weird. It's like you don't want to proactively play it, which means it's just like a one-of in your deck that you can find at some point, almost like having another supporter in your list. That like, hey, if you've been able to not Chorus away this Fez, it can be a nice Pokemon to bench like as you're digging for game on that last turn. So I think its value is a little bit weird in this list when there are those matchups when you want to be going heavy on the Pikachu. So that's my main reason why I don't have the Fez. Also, I suppose if people hit into Resolute Heart, then Fez can't activate anyway, but that's still already a winning position. That's what you're trying to do, really. So yeah, that's why I don't have Pheasantipity in the list, but I do still think it's like very solid, and a number of successful Lost Box obviously do play the Fez, so it wouldn't really look twice of it coming into the deck list. Similar for Spiritomb, really, that's been fairly staple in recent Lost Zone boxes. I think it's very good against Lugia, but I think Pikachu is already very good against Lugia, so much so that I don't really care about No Thorns in the list anymore, or the Spiritomb. Where I do think Spiritomb is still really helpful is into the Dragapults, the Charizard EXs, and massively into Control as well. I think Control is a bad matchup if you don't play Tomb, and a reasonable matchup if you do play Tomb. It's still losable, of course, because your resources are so finite and they can target them so aggressively, but when you don't give them that Rotom V draw, they're not having that same constant threat of those resources against you. So definitely if you respect the controlling matchups, I think Spiritomb could make its way back into the deck list. And like I said towards the start of the video, I think I'm the highest you'll see on energy. I don't think anyone will play any more energy than this in their list. And I think the easiest cuts right now are down to 1 Psychic and possibly down to 2 Water. I'm personally really against the like cut of Grass or Metal. Even though it's only exactly for Pikachu, I think Pikachu comes up in so many matchups that it feels so horrible to prize those energy or be in those situations with Death Flower selectings. I think it's bad enough that we have like our A-Spec, our one-of supporter cards, our one-of Pokemon. All of these are cards that you like have to take, even like Gate and Rod to an extent, even though they're 4-ofs. You really want to keep those resources around. So one thing I actually like from the deck list is that you have those additional energy, gives you a bit more license to be like, oh, that's an easy choice for the flower selecting, which is quite rare with this archetype. The other card that I've thought about is Night Stretcher coming into the deck list. Again, very versatile, flexible card. When you play so many one-off Pokemon, it can be perfect to cherry pick them back. And it also sort of lightens the load on Nest Ball as well. Very often, to reload an attacker that's been good in the matchup, you need to go like Rod, Gate, Nest, and that's a lot, right? But again, I'm still making the choice of just having these high energy cards gives me easier Lost Zone choices, as opposed to Night Stretcher, which can sort of give me a reload of Pokemon. I'm already playing for Rod, so I don't really care about that resource as much. One final note is Rescue Board. It's a weird card because whenever you PokéStop it, you're like, why are you even here when you could be hitting a Switch instead, and we're only playing 3 copies, so that could be an easy flip-flop. I think this one comes down to tool removal. Like right now, Regidrago already plays Jamming Tower, for example, and there is a lot of Lost Vacuum just because of Bravery Charm, so it doesn't feel like the Rescue Board gets too much value. I have the luxury of waiting on the results of Sacramento before I have to commit to my deck choice going into Stuttgart, but this is definitely one of my considerations, to be honest with you. I do think it's cool to play one of the new cards, obviously, and I do think this gets a little bit closer than it used to be into Drago, whereas previously you were definitely scooping on the spot. Now I feel like you actually have win conditions into them, and I do think Pikachu runs away with a ton of matchups that just can't naturally deal with its ability too easily. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for another one. Cheers.